Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? When you're trying to accomplish something, no matter what it is, work, personal life, hobbies, whatever it happens to be, what do you focus on? Do you focus on the end result or do you focus more upon how you're getting there? Don't answer this yet. I want you to think about this. Decades ago now, I had a training at work, and at that job, we sat down, we answered a lot of questions, and I realized during this training that I was much more of a product-oriented person than a process-oriented person. I'd never heard these terms before. My boss, on the other hand, being a typical manager, was much more focused on the process. We're going to do things this way because we've decided we're going to do things this way. And of course, these are going to produce the desired results because we've come up with this process. I, on the other hand, have been much more pragmatic in my career, a lot of times in business or, in various companies I've worked for, because I can see, well, hey, this isn't working and there's something here that I think we can do better. And very often large companies can be very myopic. I told you the story in another video about the idea that I was, in a company doing inventory, and the process itself required the employees to do division very quickly all day long, which was a recipe for disaster. And I pointed out, hey, we could just have them do this other thing instead. And I was told, oh no, this is the process, because the process, this is going to be the process. But I'm quick to point the finger at stuff like that. However, I can be just as guilty. I can be just as guilty of becoming very comfortable with something that I've done a bunch of times. And, I've gotten results in the past. And so this is how I've always done it. So this is how we're going to do it from now on, right? That phrase, this is how we've always done it, is probably the most dangerous phrase out there. It's a lot more dangerous, or at least as dangerous, as the ends justify the means. Because I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about, promoting or justifying atrocities or doing something unethical, because the ends justifying the means has been used as a justification for that. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about pragmatically going towards a goal, like what's actually working right now. Because what happens very often is the process that we used in the past, now it doesn't work so good. And I had this conversation. I remember I made a video about this and several other stupid things that have happened at work. And was talking about this one thing where in the company I work for now, there's this very, very large database of thousands, if not a million products that we can get and offer. And very often what happens is, due to human error, the product number gets duplicated over and over and over again. Different numbers get assigned to this very same product. And this can cause a lot of problems. And so I said to my boss's boss, actually, as we're discussing some kind of problem that came up with this, hey, when are we going to have AI scour the database and remove these things and get this thing a lot more streamlined? And he said, well, the thing is, that's so far off in the future, that's not on the radar right now. And I went away from that conversation scratching my head, because he's a lot younger than I am. And I don't care what you think about AI, if you think it's a devil or not, it excels at doing that kind of heavy lifting, the kind of repetitive, mind-numbing task that you or I it would kill us and we would get things wrong. It is excellent at that. This is one of those things where, companies that fail to take advantage of what's now and innovate and continue to change their beloved processes to achieve the end goal. The companies that do that, I believe, are going to thrive. The companies that don't do that, they're not going to thrive. Same thing for one-person businesses or whatever it happens to be. Even in something in terms of like how I approach various things that I'm doing right now, using those other tools to do the heavy lifting is incredibly useful. And I'd be stupid not to do that. And so I've gladly put down some of my dice calculations and fed it into AI instead, and it shows me exactly how I got the results. Hooray. So doing a little less mathematics these days, which is fine. A lot of ink has been spilled on businesses, innovating rather than remaining stuck in the same old processes that are just outdated. In education, you see the same thing happen. My girlfriend Susan is a teacher, and they have very rigid processes of what they're supposed to do, which doesn't do a very good job at actually educating the students, especially the individual students. And it's the teachers that are willing to break the rules and look at, well, what are we really trying to do with these children? And that produce, in my opinion, the best results. And I can even look back at my teachers from decades ago. And the ones that did that, the one that kind of didn't follow the processes to the T, those are the ones that made the biggest impact on the most students, because they were innovative and they were pragmatic and they met us where we were. And that's a very, very valuable skill for somebody to have. And, you know, in any kind of creative work, the same sort of thing. In music or whatever, very often we're told to trust the process, man. It'll be cool. But, you know, if you have to do something as part of a business arrangement, if you have to provide something, well, then you better be a little bit more pragmatic and get things done differently. And we can talk just about equipment and people that are very, very, you know, focused on this older equipment, some of which is wonderful and some of which is just outdated. And we can do a lot better with some of the newer technologies, which are lighter and faster and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, while I love some of the older stuff, I am not, you know, averse to doing things in a way that's going to be easier and faster and lighter. Recovery is one of those things where, you know, it's been very focused for me, because it's very easy to become very dogmatic about a particular recovery modality that you've used. And people in 12-step fellowships can be very guilty of this, you know, self-included, where, you know, you start to believe that this way is the only way to do something. And that's just not the case. You know, I can certainly help somebody in recovery in various ways, because I believe a lot of the principles, the basic things we're doing, are the same regardless of the modality or whatever you ever want to call it. But, you know, it can be really, really destructive and narrow-minded to just cling on to, well, this is the only way that you can get things done, when there are other ways or paths that people take to recovery. You know, health and fitness, the same sort of thing. I know, despite the video I made yesterday, I know how to lose weight. I know how to do it very, very well. I've done it many, many times. But I can be very dogmatic about that. And if I don't open myself up to other forms of input, you know, I just remain rigid, and, well, this is my process, you know, I can sabotage myself. And, you know, when I remain much more open to, you know, the input of people, you know, with recovery, with, you know, how to manage life, with how to, you know, do things in music, how to do things in role-playing games, because I was very dogmatic when I first started this channel years ago. You know, all these sort of things, if I get stuck in that, that's only going to, at least in my experience, that only frustrates my my goals, which is to get to a certain state. I want to have fun in this game. I don't want to enjoy myself in this game. I want to produce some good music. I want to have a good relationship and make money doing music. I want to do, you know, a certain thing at work and get it done correctly. I want to build some kind of, you know, business outside of work. And how am I going to do that? You know, I want to be happy. You know, the real, you know, end goals, what really matters really is, like, you know, happiness, to be, you know, for me, to be authentic, to belong, to have enough, you know, in terms of assets and finances, where I'm not worried about money, and where I can enjoy life a little bit, to, you know, to be able to spend time with the people I love, to feel good about myself, you know, to be healthy. Those are the goals I have. That's the product I'm after. How I get there is up for grabs. And, you know, if I'm willing to pivot, if I'm willing to look at things and say, you know what, this isn't working, I better change this, or I better seek some input and figure out other ways. And maybe they work and maybe they don't, but at least I'm open to that. You know, form follows function. You know, in my opinion, the process should serve the goal, not the other way around. You know, don't confuse the map for the destination. And always ask, is what I'm doing really getting me to where I want to go? If it's not, it's time to change it. Maybe ask for help, but take an honest look. Where am I really trying to go? Am I getting there? Or should I do something different? Have a good one, kids. I'll talk to you later.